I need to start this video with a piece of breaking news from the July 2026 Visa Bulletin. The EB2 category for India, the employment-based category for India, one of the largest employment-based green card categories in the entire U.S. immigration system, has officially ran out of visas. It is not a slowdown, it is not a pause, it is just unavailable. That means that the U.S. embassies, the U.S. CIS cannot issue any visas or green cards for that category until at least October of 2026. And we have seen that India's EB1 category has already retrogressed, and it just moved backwards again for the July 2026 Visa Bulletin. Now, if you're watching this and your case is a family-based category, you're probably wondering, why should I care what happens to the employment-based categories? Here's why. Back in May, I talked about on this channel something I called the green card trap. The idea that dates advancing quickly isn't automatically a good news because the movement can be driven by factors that has nothing to do with availability of visas, and those factors can be reversed. The EB2 category for India just proved that point in the most concrete way. There's a finite number of visas available. The fiscal year for USCIS, for US immigration around the world, is September 30th of each year. That's when their fiscal year ends. And the government has now shown, not threatened, but shown that they will cut off a visa category entirely once the math runs out. Family-based dates are still moving forward. And I'll walk you through those movements and those numbers in a minute. Some of the categories have moved a lot this month. I want you to watch this video with the lesson from the EB2 for India in mind. Because what just happened with that category isn't a separate story from yours. It is the same system. It is the same finite pool of visas, the same clock, just a few steps ahead of the family-based category. Now, let's get into it. A quick refresher for anyone new here. Every month, the U.S. Department of State publishes the Visa Bulletin. It is a scoreboard that tells you whether your visa is eligible to be moved forward into the green card process based on your priority date. For family-based applicants, there are two charts to keep in mind: the date for filing chart and the final action date chart. The date for filing typically is when you can expect that welcome email from the National Visa Center, and if selected by USCIS, is the earliest you can file your green card application if you qualify to file that in the US. The final action date chart tells you when your visa category, based on your priority date, can actually be approved. So filing date tells you when you can apply for things. Final action date tells you when the embassy or USCIS can actually approve your visa, approve your green card. For July 2026, USCIS is using the date for filing chart for determining when you would qualify to apply for adjustment of status based on your priority date. So if your priority date is current for July, then starting July 1st, you would be able to apply for adjustment of status in the US. As always, we will start with the date for filing chart and then go on to the final action date chart. So let's start with the date for filing chart. This chart again tells you when you would qualify to apply for adjustment of status in the US, or when you can expect to get that welcome email from the National Visa Center. For F1 category, which is the unmarried sons and daughters of US citizens that are over the age of 21, worldwide, China and India advanced about 3 months, moving to January 1st, 2019. Mexico and the Philippines stayed the same. For F2A, the spouses and children of lawful permanent residents, this is still current across all countries. Okay, there's no cutoff at all. You can file your adjustment of status right now, regardless of your priority date. Again, if you qualify to file for adjustment of status in the US. This has held steady for a few months. Again, based on my May video, you know, this is most likely due to the pauses and there being just more visas available for these categories because a lot of countries are not being issued visas. So there's going to be more visas available in these categories. F2B, the unmarried sons and daughters over 21 of lawful permanent residents. Worldwide, China and India advanced about 2.5 months to June 8, 2018. Mexico and Philippines stayed the same. F3, married sons and daughters of US citizens is frozen, right? There is no movement in any country for this month. For F4, the brothers and sisters of adult US citizens worldwide and China advanced about 2.3 months to March 1st, 2010. India, Mexico, and the Philippines remained unchanged. Now let's get to the final action date chart. Remember, the final action date chart is the finish line. This is when you can expect your visa to actually be approved versus the filing date, which is when you can start the filing process to eventually then get to have your visa approved. The final action date is where people really need to pay attention, especially if you're doing any CSPA calculations. The final action date chart is going to be more important than the filing date chart. For F1 category, the unmarried sons and daughters of US citizens over the age of 21, this is the biggest mover this month. Okay, worldwide, China and India jumped 5 months to February 1st, 2018. Mexico and the Philippines remain unchanged. For F2A, which is the spouses and children of lawful permanent residents, we did not see any movements for July. It is holding steady for all countries except for Mexico at January 1st, 2025. And for Mexico, it is holding steady at January 1st, 2024. Again, this is after we saw that huge 5-month jump in the previous month. This category kind of took a breather for July. And again, going back to my May video, these jumps are eventually going to slow down as those visas are used up. And as we saw with India for the EB2 category, if they run out of visas for that category, they're just going to make it unavailable until October 1st. For F2B, unmarried sons and daughters over the age of 21 of lawful permanent residents, we are seeing worldwide, China and India advance 2 months to November 22, 2017. The Philippines moved about 5 weeks. Mexico is unchanged. For F3, married sons and daughters of US citizens, worldwide, China and India advanced 2 months to April 15, 2012. Philippines jumped about 3 months to February 22, 2006. Mexico moved by 1 month. For F4, brothers and sisters of adult US citizens, worldwide and China advanced about 7 weeks to January 1st, 2009. Philippines moved about 2 weeks. India and Mexico remained unchanged. So on the surface, the July numbers look great. F1 category alone jumped 5 months on the final action date chart. That's a real shift, right? That's a real jump that's going to make a real difference for people that have been waiting for their category to become current, for their priority date to become current, and be able to get that visa and be able to come to the United States. That is a real change. But I want you to hold 2 things in mind. The family dates moved in July, the same month that the EB2 category for India ran out of numbers, meaning they ran out of visas for that category. It completely went unavailable. Those 2 things are not unrelated to each other. Remember, US immigration system is one system, right? It's the same system. you can face the same finite, meaning the same limited amount of visas are available in these different categories. And each category can run out of visas before the fiscal year ends. The fact that the EB2 visa category for India is now unavailable is something that you should keep in mind, especially if your visa category is becoming current. You really need to keep that in mind. The State Department confirmed that India's EB2 category hit its annual allocation limit for fiscal year 2026, and that fiscal year doesn't end till September 30th, 2026. So between now and September 30th, they're not going to be issuing any visas for the EB2 category for India. So the earliest anyone in that category can expect to get a visa issued to them would be October 1st, 2026, which is when the fiscal year 2027 starts. The lesson to take from this is that once that limit is hit, and it's usually hit around this time of year as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, because now USCIS, the embassy, has to report to the State Department what visas they have issued, what green cards they have issued. And now they're going to try to manage those numbers to figure out, okay, how many visas do we actually have available to give out for each of these categories? And is it realistic that many visas can actually be given out by September 30th? So that's where retrogression comes in. It's important to know that every family-based category, F1, F2A, F2B, F3, F4, operates under the same structure. They all have a statutory annual limit, meaning they have a limited number of visas that they can give out in each of those categories every single fiscal year. Again, that fiscal year ends September 30th of every single year and restarts on October 1st. The only reason that I feel that family-based categories haven't hit a wall like the EB2 India category is because supply and demand has been more balanced right now. And that can change. It changed for India for the EB2. It changed before, and it has changed in the past for family-based categories too. We are now 3 months away from the fiscal year ending. 3 months for the State Department to figure out and manage every remaining visa number across every single category without blowing through the annual limit anywhere else. So they have to make sure that everything stays in balance. And that's why we see retrogression sometimes on the Visa Bulletin, because they are realizing, oh no, we kind of opened this up way too wide, and there's just not enough visas for everyone that we're saying, hey, your priority date is current. There's not going to be enough visas to give to everyone that is current. So that's where you see retrogression happen on the Visa Bulletin. That's where you see those dates go backwards instead of forward, or even just freezing. It goes backward. If you're in F1 category, you saw your final action date chart jump by 5 months. This is a real jump, and this is good. If your category is now current, you have an interview coming up, make sure you're doing everything in your power to have that interview and get approved, okay? Because again, we have seen that these categories can run out of visas and can end up being frozen. So, or even worse, retrogress, meaning taken back a few months. So make sure that if you are in that process of getting you already have your interview scheduled, you already, have your visa interview date, make sure that you are following through and doing everything in your power to make that interview happen, pass your interview and get that visa issued. Because if it's not issued before that category goes to 0, right? If they run out of visas before your visa is issued, there's nothing they can do until October 1st. Okay? There's nothing they can do. So you want to make sure that you are sticking to your dates and making sure you're staying on top of your part to get that visa approved. And if you happen to, have to reschedule your interview, just know it may take longer to get that interview rescheduled, especially if that category runs out of visas while you're waiting for that interview to be rescheduled. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling this to warn you of what could happen if you delay your case, because these numbers, again, are limited. They only get a certain number every single fiscal year. We're getting to the end of that fiscal year, and you need to be prepared for your category potentially running out of visas. So here's what I'm recommending. I'm looking at my notes because I want to make sure that I get all of this down for you. If you're in F1 category, you just jump 5 months on the final action date and 3 months on the date for filing. So if your priority date falls within the new cutoffs, this is your moment. Do not sit on this. Do not wait and see. Categories that move 5 months in one visa bulletin can just as easily freeze or retrogress in the next. And we have seen that happen on the employment side. There's nothing that says it won't happen on the family side. If you're in F2A, the date for filing chart is current. So if you qualify for adjustment of status in the US and you haven't filed yet, there's no reason to wait, because filing now means that you at least have your application pending, and let's say you are currently in status and are able to apply for adjustment of status because this is current. If you then fall out of status while it's pending, you would still qualify for that green card. But if you fall out of status and then decide to file, you're not going to qualify. So you want to make sure that you are balancing your ability to adjust your status with your waiting. If you are in F2B or F3, check your priority date against the new cutoffs carefully. F2B moved, F3 only moved on the final action date, not the filing. So if you're close to current, start getting your paperwork together now. Don't wait for August to see what happens, right? You may advance in August, you may not, but you may advance in August. So you want to start putting your documentation together just in case you do advance and your priority date becomes current. If you're in F4, you saw movement was small this month, okay? A matter of weeks. If your priority date is still well outside of the cutoff, keep watching closely, but understand that this is historically the slowest moving category that there is in the visa category, okay? For everyone, I want you to keep paying attention to the Visa Bulletin. Again, the Visa Bulletin kind of gives you an idea of when you can expect your category to be current for you, right? When can you expect your priority date to be current? So if you're filing now, you can kind of look back and be like, hey, this can take up to 17 years. So I don't have to even think about the Visa Bulletin for a few more years, because it's not, especially if you're in an F4 category. If you're filing in 2026 for the I-130, trust me, you're not going to, your priority date is not going to be current anytime soon. Again, that's the slowest moving category. So you need to know that. And that's why the Visa Bulletin is so important, because it gives you that realistic expectation. Now, if you are very close to when your priority date is going to be current after you looked at when you filed versus where they are right now, you may want to start putting your documentation together, making sure your financial sponsor documents are ready. And if your financial sponsor no longer has enough income, you may want to also look at assets and a joint sponsor, and start having your civil documents put together if they are not translated, to get them translated. All of those things that are the preparation for your eventual visa application being accepted. You want to get those things going now, so that once your visa category is current and your priority date is current, you can go ahead and start filing the required documentation. If you have any doubts about where your case stands, talk to an immigration attorney now, not after October. You want to do it now while there are still 3 months on the clock and decisions to be made. If this video helps you, please like and subscribe. I'll be back next month with the August Visa Bulletin, and we can see whether this pattern continues. And please leave your questions in the comments, and I will try to answer as many of them as I can. If you have been going through your immigration journey or starting your immigration journey and you want some insights from an attorney that has been doing immigration for almost 11 years now, please go ahead and schedule a consultation with me. You can go to my website, lilylegal.com, click on contact us, and you can pick a date and time that works best for you for us to chat about your case and your situation.